Welcome back, everybody. My name is Gammatrap, one word, and today we are covering stone. Now, this is part of a stone playlist. Each of these are in their own individual video, but if you want to get the most comprehensive view of how I go about making these stylized stone pieces, you might want to start from the beginning, but they are all separated in case there's one you're looking for in particular. I have a lot more stone tutorials planned, but I wanted to take this into small bite-sized chunks. These 4 have been recorded, and I'm just finishing the editing on them all. To find the other ones, you can check the playlist or check the video description down below for the links to each of these videos. And if there's something else you're looking for in particular, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's get started. All right, so now that we got the more boring stuff out of the way, this is the 3rd video of the stone series, and this one we're actually going to be making rocks. Like real rocks. Crazy. The first video was a cube, like a square or a dice, that kind of shape. And the second one was a more sphere, but like half buried. And those two were to cover a lot of the basics, like how light reacts to the stone texture and the colors and all that stuff, and how to make grooves and cracks and how everything kind of molds together into creating the stylized stone. So now we can start just kind of rolling through the more fun ones. Like maybe this is probably the real reason people are going to watch this series, if I'm being completely honest. How do I paint rocks? just give me rocks, just cool rocks, magical rocks, rocks with vines on them, just rocks, just fun stuff. So we're going to get into that. As usual, our brush is going to be the hard round pressure opacity, and then eventually we're probably going to use the soft round pressure opacity at some points if we want softer stuff. Just basic brushes, and these brushes are in pretty much every program. They might have different names, but in Photoshop, they're just these. Now, the colors we're going to be using, again, as we've done so far, are these kind of cool grays, and they go in sort of a diagonal line from low saturation and light to a little more saturation and dark. And this is my personal preferred method of using colors in a stylized format, because it's hard to combat a low saturation black almost, because and if you want a vibrant piece, or if you want to have a vibrant setting or vibrant stuff, it's really hard to just okay, there's black, just pure black. What are you gonna do with it now? It's hard to color. So you'll watch how we go from light to dark in like this sort of diagonal sort of way. So it's all kind of blue. It's all kind of cool. A little blue, a little bit of green, maybe a little teal technically. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're just going to make a shape. Rocks are pretty interesting. Rocks are crazy. Rocks are just chaos. If it looks like it's on purpose, it's probably not going to look very natural. So, for example, we made a sphere, for example, in one of them, and another one we made a cube, and those look like they're carved, like they're not there by any form of nature, or they're not there naturally. It's just it looks like they've been manipulated into being that, which is great for a lot of stone stuff, but for just rocks, because that's what we're doing. We got to make these have a basic shape, and then not have it look like symmetrical or like it was carved or anything. So to start out, we're just gonna make a shape. And before we use the lasso tool, and you could use the lasso tool also here, but you don't have to. Let's pick a shape here. Let's say we want sort of like almost like a teardrop shape. Almost like a triangle kind of stone. And I just picked one of these colors, and I'm just kind of using it because we're going to use it as a clipping mask later. So it doesn't really matter what you use right now. We're just trying to get just a basic fun shape. Now, for stylized rocks, you could have sharp corners if you want, but to make it look like it's fitting in a particular setting, it's a good idea. I swear, is there some kind of shape dynamics? They're not. Be a good idea if there was some more rounded edges. Now, I have a tutorial on how to draw rocks, and that's actually going to help a lot of people when it comes down to making like the random planes of rocks. But let's say that's our rock. Now we're going to make a new layer. Right click it, make a clipping mask. And again, if any of this stuff confuses anybody, the first 2 videos of this series go into extreme detail on how light works in grooves and indentions and carvings and all kinds of stuff. So if you're confused at all, chances are that question has been answered already in the previous videos. But we're going to grab a darker color and we're going to find some planes. Actually, let's do this. Let's get our lasso tool and let's make our planes. Now we're in the clipping mask layer. Actually, let's make it a little darker so we can manipulate it a bit more. There we go. All right, so you're going to find the corners. So for example, here's a corner where it goes, it comes this way and stops and then goes down a bit. That's a corner. That's what I mean by find a corner. Make your brush nice and big and let's lighten it up a little. Now, for those who don't know yet, this is the first video in the series. I made a light source come from the top left to the bottom right, and it's sort of behind the rock. So the most shadow of the rock is going to be in this area right here. So keep that in mind. I made this here specifically to show, like where the light source is coming. We're going to lasso tool again. And we're using this lasso tool here to just make planes, meaning like strong, solid shapes. So again, we're just going to find these planes here. Now let's make a lighter plane. Closer towards the top because the light source is up here. So it's going to be lighter planes are going to be up the top and the left. Darker planes are going to be the bottom right. We're just going to be cutting these little shapes here. You can use color picker if you need to. And we're invoking a little bit of randomness with some of these. So you'll notice how every so often I'm just kind of like, that just helps sort of solidify like that it's not natural. If you do this while you're cutting the shapes, it saves you from having to paint the grooves and cuts later on, which we still will. It's always good, but it just makes it a little faster for us if we can just get that stuff situated earlier, like that's a little groove and we're going to cut more of those later, but you could just do it while you're in the planes phase. It's going to have a dash of the darker one. We're just going to find planes. Now, something to keep in mind. This plane is slightly, its face, I always have to draw something. So you'll notice how it goes like that. That means that this plane will be darker than this plane because of the light source coming down. Like it'll skim off the side here, but it'll hit, it'll like really hit the planes that are facing up. Now they're both in the shade, they're both in the shadow, so it's not gonna be like crazy. But what we could do is grab our darker plane again. There. Grab our darker color that we have here and very gently add a little touch to it. And let's continue. We're just finding interesting shapes, interesting planes. I'm going to add to this shape. There we go. A little lighter because it's facing more up. Now this plane needs to be a little darker just because it's facing away from the light source. Now, let's make some more interesting shapes. Let's say we make a new plane that's facing more towards the light source. Right there. All right, now that we've got a lot of the planes figured out, let's just figure out this bottom. So let's square this up a bit. So I just made a mask on our shape layer. So this is this layer right here is our color layer, and we turn that off and we just got our shape. So you click that layer, and you come down here, you click this, you make a mask. And a mask is if you paint black on it, it acts as sort of an eraser. See here? And if we switch to white, it brings it back. So we are going to cut slightly more interesting bottom section. Now where the grass is, I'm gonna make little grass blades just to set it up ahead of time. Even where the dirt is, I can always just paint more grass in. If we add our color layer here, it'll help us see a little better. So you notice how now once we cut those little grooves and stuff in the bottom, it makes it look like the stone is actually sitting in the dirt with the grass around it, and the grass is growing around it. All right, now we're going to do the Stylized Edge. And if you don't know what that is, again, I've got those other videos. They go well in detail into it. But essentially, it's where you grab the edges of our planes and we just give a little highlight. Not the entire part, but just usually it's the part that's facing the light source the most, or it's the edge closest to us, closest to the viewers. And it just gives it a little love. I'm just kind of scribbling right now, but we'll clean this up in a second. And this falls directly into the rule of cool. Like there's very few, if any, good reasons to have this highlight edge, this highlight edge. I don't know how to say it. And you could also add in sort of like scrapes, which we can clean up again a little bit later. But this sort of wears down the edges, you could say. I'm going to make this top one a little more bright. And I'll curve it like that. And we're just color picking around here, making sure we got the right color. So we're picking the color right next to where we're painting, so we know it fits if there's any form of gradient or anything. And we're just adding interesting like little swirls or grooves, but very light. And the reason for this is, like I said, it's almost like we're adding wear and tear and scuffs to the stone. So imagine it's almost like the stone was painted this color, which is, you know, not really ironic, is it? Redundant? Anyway. But now we're like scraping the paint off. Only on the edges, though. So that's one way to sort of look at it. And while you're here, you can also actually just make more planes, because you don't have to do the lasso tool to make interesting planes. You just have to sort of think of it in a 3D space if you want to figure out the right color, because that's always a bit of a challenge for a lot of people. You know, what value, what color should I make these planes on things like rocks? But again, like, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we did cover that a lot in the previous videos. So be sure to check those out if you're ever just confused. Like, what are they talking about? Grooves, lighting, stepping. What is all this? Just came here to learn how to paint rocks, dude. There's interesting levels on learning how to paint anything. And again, we're just cutting interesting shapes. Shapes within shapes. That's one of the main tenets of a stylized painting. So we're just cutting shapes inside our shapes. Just want to make this rock as interesting as we possibly can, but not too crazy. Right now, it's actually pretty crazy. We're gonna have to simplify this pretty soon. Because stylized stuff is often better simplified. I don't know if you knew this. And we're just going to find the lines and add those little highlights to it. And we can make our brushes as small as we want. It depends completely on how much time you really want to dedicate to making these rocks. Now, another one of the core tenets of stylized pieces is don't be boring, which means if, for example, this line is the exact same width the entire way down, that's boring. That's repetitive. That's predictable. To make stylized stuff interesting, oftentimes it's best if you change things up, make things a little different. All right, so let's add a little bit of light back here, just to keep things interesting. Not too much, because we already set the rules in place saying where the light source is, you know, and all that. But just enough to keep people on their toes. Now, another thing that a lot of more beginner type artists have an issue with is they overcomplicate their stylized pieces, their stylized work. So if you find yourself drawing ice or fire or stone or wood or anything else that we're going to cover or already have covered, you can see like, man, it's just, it looks like mud. It looks messy. Just simplify it. You might be just doing a little too much. Simplify your life. All right, now we're going to add some dark planes down the bottom. Very cool. Very nice. All right, let's just clean this up just a little bit before we get into the really fun stuff. We're going to add magical carvings to this one. That's right, I said it. Magical. People have come to my tutorials, be like, oh man, Gamma, I came here because I was trying to draw a fire spell, and I saw your magical fire tutorial, and it was amazing. And they found my magical ice tutorial and all that stuff. And people seem to just really like my magical effects tutorials. And we're just got a little bit of rim lighting here, just to help the highlight, or just to help the edge kind of pop a bit. It's just a little bit of juice. Now, here's something you have to know, okay? It's important. And you'll see I'm actually adding some highlighting on everywhere the edge kind of turns up a bit. I keep drawing on up a bit. So like this, like that. This can get some highlighting. Very light, very light. That can get a lot of highlighting. Yeah, a little light. And that gets a lot of highlighting because it's facing our light source. My sound effects. Oh my god. Anyway, what I was gonna say is you really don't want to add like a lot of rim lighting, which this is, by the way, like all this good juicy stuff. You don't want to add a whole lot of rim lighting to a lot of pieces. It tends to make the pieces look like drawings, make them look flat. But having said that, getting a little animated here. If you think it adds to the coolness factor, lighten that up just a bit. The coolness factor of your piece, your stylized piece, then you could totally do it. Remember, we're obeying the rule of cool here. Okay, that takes precedent over almost everything else. If it looks cool, do it. If it doesn't look cool, probably should reconsider. You know. And here, like you see, I'm making this dark spot right here. It's because to me, here, let me actually back up so you can see my mental process. You see, I see this line right here, this highlight line. So that tells me that this shape is highlight, flat, and shadow. But I thought it'd be interesting if we make it give it like a little bit of a lip right there. So it's sort of like a highlight, shadow, flat, or highlight, shadow, you know? Just trying to make things a little more interesting. Always like to pop into my mental process here while I draw this stuff. None of this is scripted. As you could probably tell, most of this is not scripted. Okay, so we're good. That's a rock. I'm good. I'm settled. That's a nice, lovely boulder. The boulder. I don't know if any of you else have a last airbender. Okay, I gotta stop working on this. I fall into the artist trap way too often. We're just sitting there like, you know, it'd be really fun if I just draw like this for 3 hours straight. We don't have that kind of time. All right, we're making a new layer, and let's make some magical runes, the good stuff, the stuff you came here to see. Let's think of what we want to cut into this. Let's make like almost like a question mark, almost like a sickle. So I'm gonna grab the shadow and probably make it like that. Have a thing like right there. That's actually pretty cool. I'll make it bigger though. Just easier for people to see. Like that. Whoa, that's nice. Okay, now this is a new layer. You know, we're not messing anything up here. So, again, rule of cool, don't be boring. Don't be boring. That's a big one. Don't be boring. Repeat after me. Do not be boring. This is a single width line. Single width lines are boring. So we're going to make them different width. So probably make it thicker towards the edge here. We're gonna cut up the sides. Why am I painting? I could just erase. I'm acting foolish. There we go. We're going to make some parts thicker, some parts thinner, and none of it is going to be boring. That's much better already. Now, I'm thinking, could make another layer. Layers are free, layers are cheap. Let's make a teal, like a glowing green, not green, teal rune. So because this rune is not facing directly towards us, it's facing more that way. So to make it look like it's embedded into the stone, we're not going to cover the entire thing. We're actually going to just cover the edge closest to us and leave the other edge untouched. This might seem like, well, yeah, obviously, Gamma, to some people, but I'm telling you, I keep getting comments from lovely people who are saying, oh my God, I just started. These are so helpful. And that's the point. That is the point. Always glad to have little refreshers for everyone who's got a little extra talent and a little extra skill under their belt. But having said that, a lot of these are for, you know, to help people who are just starting. Maybe looking for their style. Maybe trying to emulate a style they enjoy. Who knows? Oh, that's nice. Oh, that is nice, and I like it. We can actually cut this a little wider. No one has to know our secret, that the actual scar, the actual carving doesn't go that deep. But for the sake of it looking good, it will remain with us. We will say it went there. Now, oh, wait, hang on, hold up. It's magical, right? So we got to make it magical. Soft brush, we're going to lower the flow, and we're going to lower the opacity of the brush. So it's going to look like this. And the more you repeat. Okay, so quick explanation. If max flow, max opacity, we press all the way, that's as bright as you're ever going to get. Okay, but if you lower the flow, that's how much the brush will come out, depending on how hard you press. Lower the opacity, you press as hard as you want. And that's the max. It's only 46% opaque. But then you can repeat over the same place, and it gets brighter and brighter. Just fun things to play around. We only have to mess with the flow. We'll be fine. I believe in us. We're going to turn on our thickness control and try color dodge for kicks and gigs. We're going to just very gently go over these edges here, changing the width of our brush depending on how much of the glowing rune is exposed. Very important. Then make it really big and then super gentle, just kind of over everything. And then we can actually just lower the opacity of that by itself. We turn it on and off, we made it its own layer. That's the reason we made it its own layer. Now that the magical rune's out of the way, let's finish this rock. We can turn this rune on and off whenever we want. There's our rock. Okay, so at the base rock level, still got our big soft brush. We're gonna grab probably that color. Make a new layer, clipping mask. So whatever we do stays inside the shape that we made. We're gonna make this a multiply layer. And we're very gently going to brush a bit on the shadowed side. Like that. Now we can lower the opacity of that multiply if you think it was a little too strong, which I kind of do. Yeah, that's good. All right. Now, I think just cause I want this rock to be more fun than the other ones, I'm gonna add a little extra cuts, a little extra grooves, just a little extra character. Because this is still pretty boring right here. Grab our hard round pressure opacity. Let's give it a little extra character. So if you don't know how to make these grooves and how best to make them, you know, which way the light hits them, etc., all that, that is in the first video with the cube. It talks about planes and shade and shadows and all that tasty stuff. And we can also add some cracks. There we go. The structural integrity of this rock is quite damaged. Nice. Be a little brighter there. And that rim doesn't need to be there. This one either, for that fact. There we go. That is a much more interesting rock. Nice. Look at us. Look at us. Look at us go. All right, now I wanted to add that fun. There it is. I'm just gonna speed it up real quick, and I'm gonna do my extra credit that I like to do. I'm just gonna, you know, fix up the bottom area and give it a shadow, and then we're gonna call it done. You're not gonna miss a thing. It's just be really fast, like super fast. I'm not even kidding. Watch. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like it if you liked it, dislike it if you dislike it. Sub to see more. This is our third in our stone series, and we've got a couple more coming. There's gonna be floating rocks, rocks covered in vines and like leaves. That's gonna be fun. And then probably archway, pillars, other stuff from the stone tutorial. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna have a good time with it. All these videos have already been recorded, by the way. I just have to finish editing them. I always have so much trouble saying that. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to, and ring the bell, you'll be able to catch all of these tutorials coming up. And we've also got how to do stylized weaponry like swords and lava and wood and texture and trees and all this other stuff. I've already got this whole huge curriculum planned out and ready. I took April off. I didn't do anything for April. I had life to take care of at that point. I've got everything situated, everything's back as it was, and I'm able to get back to y'all and continue making these fun tutorials. So thank you so much to my amazing patrons. I appreciate the ever loving out of you for supporting the ever loving out of me, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.